agenda here, so I'm going to thank you for that, Mandy, and I'm going to call this meeting to order with a recommendation that the agenda for the November 2nd, 2021 Township of Wellington North Rec Parks Leisure and committee meeting be accepted and passed. All in favor? I'll say that was moved by Brian and seconded by Dan. All in favor? Thank you. I'll ask Brian if you have any pecuniary interests at all.
I do not, Mr. Chair.
Dan?
No.
Great, thank you. I don't have any, and of course, if it does come up that you find yourself in a pecuniary interest, just kindly let us know and we'll take it from there. So with that, I will pass this over to someone who's not always on the meeting, but he's a welcome feature, and it is Adam McNabb to go into report CAO 2021-008. And this is the Fundraising Committee Guidelines and Charitable Donation Receipt Policy. And it's a long one. So I have a recommendation here that the Council of the Township of Wellington North receive report CAO 2021-008 being a report on the Fundraising Committee Guidelines, and further that the Recreation, Parks and Leisure Committee endorse the implementation of the Fundraising Committee Guidelines as laid out in this report. Now I will say, to get this on the floor, Dan, that you moved it, and Brian, you seconded it, and I will now pass it over to you, Adam.
Chair McCabe, with your indulgence, maybe I'll try and save Adam a little bit here. And
sure.
Certainly he's prepared, but this is really started with me, so I'd like to provide some context. And if there are questions as it relates to kind of the implications as it relates to our finance staff, Adam's absolutely here to do that. So yeah, I think the report hopefully speaks well in that we're faced with some dynamics that exist when we have volunteer groups that come forward looking to fundraise for, basically capital enhancements on the rec side of things. Lots of them come forward and have support of other community groups like a Lions group or Canets or things of that nature that have kind of some level of financial structure already existing, and it allows them to kind of work within that financial structure without having to kind of rely on Township to provide that structure for them. What this report is acknowledging or trying to suggest is when we have groups that don't have that kind of structure, these are the guidelines that we think would ensure that they are able to operate in their own environment, focusing on the fundraising part without having to rely heavily on the Township in terms of, the example is, hey, we want to go to a local event and sell some mugs or t-shirts or hats, and we need $100 floats in order to get there. Well, the way things currently stand, and this is the structure that exists within our municipality and most municipalities, is they've got to go through committee, they got to go through council, in order to get it $100 float. But if we're going to provide some flexibility and some anonymity to the committees, there's an accountability requirement that exists. Again, we're talking about public dollars, we're talking about public funds, and that's what we're trying to balance with these guidelines. And I would suggest, I've already heard from one member of council that has said, hey, this is a lot more work for these committees than maybe what they signed up for. And I'm willing to acknowledge that the expectations around the guidelines in terms of financial accountability is more work than maybe some of the fundraising committees or fundraising volunteers are looking for. But this is where we try to find the balance. We want them obviously to be engaged and have some freedom, but myself in my role, Adam in his role, and all of staff, we have certain parameters that we need to make sure are in place. They're very similar to what we do with the Chambers of Commerce and the BIAs that we also work with. We're not overseeing every dollar and cents on a daily basis, but there is an accountability trail that exists that we need to be able to support with our audits and our auditors. So that's kind of where this all came from. It is trying to find that balance to give these committees freedom, because council's tasked them with the big job of raising dollars, which is a huge challenge. But it also is reflective of what we need as a municipal organization from an accountability standpoint.
Thanks for that, Mike. Adam, do you have anything to share, or?
That's for you, Chair McCabe. No, I don't think I have anything to add. I think Mike has kind of encapsulated the conversation quite well. And really the impetus is just providing some leeway in terms of being able to operate autonomously, whilst also keeping the safeguards in place, which I think Mike has captured. So nothing further.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the committee, Dan or Brian?
I don't think so. Not right now. I think there's a lot there to take in, and Mike, I think, has put it into, certainly general terms that I hope makes sense. But it's been an issue that we've been trying to deal with for a number of years. So we need to move on with it.
Thank you. Yeah, Brian, I know you had your hand up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And every municipality deals with this to one extent or another. But, I've often wondered if, to accommodate the various groups that want to contribute or be involved with different projects, whether it's recreation or anything else in the municipality, I'm wondering if maybe, we shouldn't use a model somewhat similar to the healthcare sector, where the hospital is an entity upon itself, and create a foundation, like a Wellington North Recreation Foundation. And they can go off and do their thing. And at various times in the year, they can say, okay, here you go, Wellington North, here's 10,000, here's 25,000 for whatever project. Is something like that, or would something like that work, Mike, or not?
Yeah, through you, Chair McCabe, Brian, it's certainly something that I've thought about as a model that exists. I don't know. Well, I do know to a certain degree. The foundations themselves, the hospital foundations, are a separate corporate entity, which it allows them some inherent flexibility. I haven't gone to the extent of seeing what that would look like or how it could or could not work, thinking that this was maybe not quite to that extreme, but it is a model that exists, and for a lot of reasons, Brian, you know this from your own experience, and so does Councillor Yake, and I'm sure Councillor McCabe does as well. They try to separate one from the other, so you don't want to impact funding for operations that comes from the province. With they want to show those direct lines. We don't necessarily need that for the most part, because any grants that we get are separate kind of from our OMPF funding, which is kind of the operation dollars that we get. So it's slightly different, but Brian, I think it's a very good question. And the model itself, works in the healthcare industry in that, the lines are very clear, right? You're not
exactly.
And this is kind of what we're trying to get to with the guidelines without maybe incurring the additional expense around the foundation piece. But it's maybe worth something for us to think about as more and more of these opportunities around, hey, we need to fundraise, because Wellington North, and we're not different from others, have said to our community, listen, if you want recreation enhancements, and I'll just use that as an example.
Yep.
You got to fundraise for them, right? So it could take a number of years in some instances. So maybe it does make sense to go to that extreme. We just haven't really looked that hard at it, to be honest.
Right. That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Brian, and thanks for that, Mike. And so then this has really absolutely nothing to do with chase the ace or whatever, and then that money going towards the municipal bill. Okay, just wanted to make that clarification. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah, Dan, looks like you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to go a little bit further on Brian's point, then to Mike, like, wouldn't something like that, and I know you haven't really investigated it very far, but it certainly would take a lot of pressure off the municipality, wouldn't it, to a certain degree? I mean, if certainly if the foundation, if a foundation similar to the hospital, said, here's $10,000 or $20,000 that we've raised to go towards a specific pool or a specific facility. So is it something that might, maybe as we go along here, not today, but something that we do look into?
So a couple things, and this pretty much off the top of my head. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, when we talk about the foundation, separate corporate entities. So then we need to have appointed members to it. And I don't think you probably want to cross over. You don't want counselors on this foundation. You'd have to separate all those lines, and not to say we couldn't find people, but I do think there would be a struggle around this. Listen, hospital foundations have a lure to them that Township doesn't necessarily have. And I see Brian's reaction and Steve's reaction to that, but I think you guys know what I'm saying. So, and the other part is, it wouldn't necessarily change the piece, and Steve, you raised this point, and I didn't necessarily want to go there, but it wouldn't change the dynamic around lottery proceeds, even if we had a separate entity, because it's still, the dollars are still going towards something that the AGCO says you can't raise dollars for. So it wouldn't alleviate that,
right,
that problem that we're trying to figure out to a certain degree.
Yeah. Okay.
From a lottery standpoint.
Yeah.
Because the proceeds are still going to something that the AGCO says is ineligible, blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, it's worth thinking about, I think, and seeing if the challenges that I've tried to identify are something that we can overcome, just so we're not revisiting this on a project by project basis. I think it's a reasonable idea for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the whole point of having a policy, is we don't have to revisit this 6 times a year. Any other questions, Dan or Brian, for Adam or Mike at all?
No, sir.
Oh, I'm okay.
Great, thank you. I have that recommendation on the floor. All in favor? Thank you very much, and thanks, Adam, for joining us. You can stay if you'd like.
This is very compelling drama.
He wasn't long leaving.
No, I know.
Well, he got his answer. He's out of here.
Any business arising from the minutes, Dan or Brian?
No, sir.
I have none.
No.
Nope, great, thanks, Dan. So we will go on to RPL 2021-021, a review of the 2021 splash pad water volume. And I have a recommendation moved by Deputy Mayor Milne and seconded by Councillor Dan, that the Rec, Parks and Leisure Committee receive for information report RPL 2021-021, being a water volume comparison for Mount Forest and Arthur splash pads. And you'll find that on page 14. Over to you, Tom. Yep, there you are. Go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, at the last rec meeting, Councillor Milne asked about the usage of the Mount Forest splash pad. So we put together some numbers, the water volume for both Arthur and Mount Forest splash pads. As you can see, the usage in Mount Forest went down in 2020, and that can only be attributed to the novelty of the new splash pad when it was first opened in 2020. The Arthur pad will stay in and around the 5,000 cubic meter per year. That's what it has been doing historically. My assumption for Mount Forest pad, it'll probably be in around the 8,000 cubic meters per year. And we should be able to see that over the next few years. We'll be able to get those assumptions correct, I hope. It's also important to note that on this report, that the splash pads opened late in 2020 due to COVID restrictions. And just by looking at the report, the volumes, they're all there. Mount Forest in 2020 did 9,174. In 2021, they did 8,785. Arthur did in 2020 did volumes of 3,108, and in 2021 they did volumes of 4,982 cubic meters.
Great, thank you for that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's
Tom.
the only other little thing is a line at the bottom that just each splash pad takes approximately 2 cubic meters to run through a cycle. So when you get down to it, Mount Forest in 2021, the activator was hit 4,390 times. In Arthur, it was hit 2,490 times. And if you really want to break it down more, I like numbers. Approximately 27 times per day in Mount Forest and approximately 15 times per day in Arthur.
Those numbers I think are pretty crazy actually, and it's great to see that it's being used. And like you said, opening late for COVID, it was nice I think to have this amenities that people could enjoy it last year, excuse me, and the year before. Any questions for Tom while we've got him here? Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tom, for this. This is exactly what I was looking for. I appreciate your efforts to put this in front of us. I guess a couple questions. One is, how long is a cycle? 5 minutes? 10 minutes?
Yeah, approximately 5 minutes. 5 to
5
6
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
Both pads are a little bit different.
Yeah, 5 minutes. So the other, and I note your financial considerations there. I see that, I mean, it's significant dollars to run those splash pads. And I don't know whether you can, well, I'm sure you could make something up, but what kind of
run things in South State?
we're a creative bunch up here. But I'm just wondering, from your standpoint, Tom, relative to the pool, is this good value or not? I mean, and there's a lot of variables in there. I get it, because the splash pads open a lot more hours and it's available to a lot more people. And is there good value in these splash pads or no?
To me, it's entertainment for the kids.
Oh yeah.
The pool itself is it's valuable to the town. I'm a non-swimmer and all my kids have been lifeguards. So I think everybody should swim. I didn't learn to swim when I was a kid and I tried as an adult and I could not do it still. So I stay away from the edges of the pool. I think the pools are very important.
I'm not trying to argue that. I'm just, is the splash pad a good value relative to the pool? That's I guess all I'm looking for, because again, it's open more hours. It's available to non-swimmers like yourself, because I hadn't seen any photos of you in the splash pad, but I mean, right?
Yeah, and you won't catch me in the splash pad. I think it is good. It's entertainment for our kids. It keeps our kids busy. I think the community kids busy.
Right. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Brian. And that was a good question. And I think to add to you, to what you're saying, Tom, as well, is, if there's a family that has kids in swimming lessons, and then they have really young kids that aren't going in the pool yet, I think the splash pad is just a perfect spot where it is in Arthur. And then the same thing in Mount Forest. It's a great spot to go. And yeah, on a hot day, and it's nice. I think that's perfectly located where it is as well. So yeah, it's interesting to put the dollars and the volumes of water, to see those kind of numbers, I think is quite interesting as well. And it's nice to see they're being used. Like, that's amazing how many times they've been pushed and the cycles have gone off. So very cool. Go ahead there, Dan. I was just about to ask if anyone has any more questions.
Yeah, just I guess, Tom, while we got you on the call here, how have has there been any maintenance issues with either one of them? I know, they're both relatively new, so I'm just, are they still running in good order and we're avoiding any major costs?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah. As far as maintenance for them, activators, we've replaced 2 activators in Arthur since we opened that one. That's the only things we've really done down there, other than opening and closing. Mount Forest, we've already replaced 1 activator. That's just the button the kids hit. The other issue we had was the rock that spurts out in Mount Forest. It came dislodged. It was glued down. We're going to re-glue it in the spring and have it back up and running again. But it was just a matter of the glue or cement or whatever they used. We have that in hand. We've got that from the supplier. We'll get it put back down.
Sure. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And no issues with the opening and closing of them anymore, really, either, eh, Tom?
No, there isn't.
Mike, I see you've just come on the screen. Do you want to chip in here?
No,
He wanted to
nothing to add.
say he wanted to say he was a swimmer, but he uses the splash pad as well.
Both.
Great. If there's no further questions, we have the recommendation on the floor. Thank you for that, Tom. All in favor? Great, thank you. That has passed. Excuse me, we have no deputation today. And that takes us to Matt for the ad hoc committee update on page 16. Over to you, Matt.
Yep, thanks, Chair McCabe. So the minutes of that meeting on November 9th have been included. A big part of the discussion has to do with that first item that was on the agenda as it relates to some financial independence for the community groups from a fundraising standpoint. Otherwise, the minutes largely speak to fundraising ideas. So open to answer questions, but those minutes are just presented really for committee's awareness.
Great, thank you for that, Matt. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I have a recommendation that the Rec, Parks and Leisure Committee receive for information the minutes of the November 9th, 2021 Mount Forest Aquatics Ad Hoc Advisory Committee meeting. I'll say that was moved by Dan and seconded by Brian. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Great, thank you. Moving on to reports. Back to you, Matt. We have quite a few things on the go here for this report. And I'll read the recommendation after your report is given. So over to you.
Thanks, Chair McCabe. Just going to take a minute and go through the details of the report. It's really the intent of the report is to lay out the public consultation process for the pool conceptual design. Staff have had one meeting with the architect, and those meeting minutes have been included. There's a subsequent meeting plan later this week that staff will attend, really just to provide some initial input into the conceptual designs. In mid-January, we're looking to have a meeting with the architect, members of township staff, the RPL chair, and the Aquatics Ad Hoc Advisory Committee chair to again discuss some conceptual designs. Towards having those designs, those 3 designs presented at the February RPL meeting, which would be our next meeting. And that would be really to prepare us for a mid-February special meeting of Recreation, Parks and Leisure. And that meeting would basically be to specifically deal with reviewing the 3 conceptual designs with the public and solicit feedback. At that meeting, we would invite, members of the Mount Forest Aquatics Ad Hoc Committee, the Mount Forest Lions, Southgate Council, West Grey Township Council. Really, it would be an open invitation. And following that, we would have March and April, which would be sort of a comment period where people would have the ability to comment as it relates to the pool's conceptual designs. This is put forward really to just see if that type of public consultation seems reasonable to the committee. And then just whether or not there was any additional maybe presentations or additional locations where committee felt that that conversation or that presentation of the 3 conceptual designs could happen. As well, as I discussed, included with this package is the meeting minutes from the first meeting with the architect. There's a number in those meeting minutes that's probably a lot higher than what township staff originally thought maybe the pool would cost. I think until we get the details of a conceptual design, it'll be hard to nail down an exact number. From a staff standpoint, what we're trying to do is we're trying to mimic the existing pool, but mimic the existing pool, recognizing that the pool we build in 2023, 2024 is going to serve the community for 50 years. And the pool that we're trying to replicate was built in the 1950s and 60s to serve a community for 50 years. So I think staff is constantly trying to balance those priorities and make sure that what we build makes sense for the programming that we envision for the next 50 years. So I think you'll see coming to this committee as often as we can, meeting minutes from this and the discussion around pool, because it is such a large ticket item. It's important we do it right and get the consultation piece right. So happy to answer questions. That's kind of a verbal summary, I guess, of what the purpose or the intent of the report was.
Excuse me. Great. Thank you, Matt. Brian or Dan, any questions for Matt on this report? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Matt, for the report. Certainly, from Southgate's perspective, we appreciate the opportunity to participate in the public input. I'm wondering, just on that line, would Minto have any participation or interest in participation, or no? Just because they're on your west border.
I wouldn't think so, but Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Chair McCabe, I would think members of Minto community that probably live closer to this area probably would have an interest in participating in the consultation process if this is the direction they head for some of the services they look for. Minto or Center Wellington or Mapleton for that matter haven't been part of the discussion to date, which is why I guess the report only reflects the West Gray and Southgate at present.
No, that's fine. Just a thought. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that question.
I know Mike's always looking for more money, so I just wanted to try to help him out a little bit there.
And yeah, for sure. I think once we have the public consultation, and if it's like, it'll probably be out and advertised. I think if there's people from Minto that want to attend that, I think they're obviously more than welcome to. And obviously for our own residents, I think the public consultation will be great to have them have their say and have a look at it. So Dan, do you have any questions at all for Matt?
I just wanted to ask Matt, tomorrow's meeting, is it tomorrow or Thursday's meeting? What's the agenda for that meeting? Like what's the discussion going to be?
Through you, Chair McCabe, the discussion at this point is just still preliminary as far as getting some of the base information into the architect's hands, like a plan for the site. Some of that information that they need to be able to generate conceptual designs. There has been some conversation to date about what kind of existing programming is offered at the existing with the intent of the new pool being able to match that programming. But it's more of an information gathering session by the architect, just asking staff for some of that background information to get them to a point where the conversation in January, I think, will will come a lot more informed as far as they'll have some of that background information and some of the programming expectations that are looked to be met with the new pool.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks for that question as well, Dan. Any other questions for Matt while we have him here? Seeing none, I have a recommendation moved by Brian and seconded, excuse me, by Dan, that the Recs, Park and Leisure Committee receive for information report RPL 2021-022, being a report on the public consultation for the concept design for the new Mount Forest outdoor pool and aquatics facility. And further, that the committee recommend the Council of Wellington North direct staff to implement the public consultation program detailed within this report, with the aim for the committee to approve a preferred design concept at the May RPL meeting. Any last questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you very much. We'll keep going on the agenda, and we'll pass it back to you, Matt, with the RPL 2021-023 cash in lieu of parkland report.
Yep. Thanks, Chair McCabe. So the recommendation that's before you with respect to parkland dedication is really an update from an existing fee that the township has had in place for around 10 years. And basically, if you own a piece of property in Wellington North and you have to go to land division to get a buildable lot created, so typically that's a severance or a thing like a plan of subdivision or a plan of condominium. By the Planning Act, there's a requirement for a 5% parkland dedication. And I think the reason for that is there's an acknowledgement in the Planning Act level that parkland is an important part of communities, and 5% wasn't arrived at, I guess, long ago, because 5% made sense, probably from a planning perspective. Alternatively, there's this cash in lieu component, which cash in lieu is money that can be given in place of giving land that can be used for parkland facility or park and recreation service facilities. So I checked with economic development officer, and the cost of a service lot in Wellington North these days is in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000 for a lot. So if I use the lower value of those numbers being $150,000 and take 5% of that, we arrive at the $7,500 number. So really what the recommendation that's before you is to increase our existing fee of $1,000 to $7,500 per lot. And just for some additional context, $1,000, if I take that over $150,000, that represents a payment of approximately 0.7%. And I guess from a staff standpoint, we can see that as the community grows, parkland and recreation amenities are acknowledged as an important part of the service level that's provided by the township. And this is a funding mechanism that's outside of tax levy that can be used to generate money for recreation services. So that's just a little background of how I arrived at, or how the recommendation was arrived at. And then the bylaw itself is really borrowing from a neighboring municipality just to try to make parkland dedication a little more clear as far as provide some additional clarity to what parkland dedication is in a Wellington North setting. That's the other component of the resolution, but certainly willing to take questions or answer anything in addition.
Great, thanks, Matt. I will open the floor to any questions or comments. Go ahead, Brian. And then you, Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Matt, for the report. I'm just wondering, so this will be for any new lot created anywhere in the township, is that correct? This isn't just in your urban centers or urban built-up areas?
Through you, Chair McCabe. Yeah, the intent is if it's a buildable lot created in Wellington North, it would be that policy would be applicable, yes.
And would current buildable lots that exist, would they still remain at the 1,000? Well, I guess they've already incurred the cost.
If at this
Right.
point they're a legal lot, then they have incurred that cost in order to
They've
clear
incurred
that
that.
condition.
The only comment I would make is 7,500 seems a little steep. I mean, I get your math there, but 7,500 seems pretty steep on top of your building, your development charges.
Yep.
Wellington North has development charges, right?
Yep.
Yes, we
And
do.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
Yep, no, thanks for that, Brian. And yeah, it is pretty steep, and that's why we're here to have a good chat about this. So, and Dan, I think I saw your hand up, so.
Yeah, I certainly think it's certainly time that we look at the number. The $1,000 has been in place for quite some time. Really, I guess as a township, we should have been looking at this years ago, so that we kind of increased it, on a percentage basis or a dollar value as we moved on. So I struggle a bit with moving it from $1,000 today and $7,500 tomorrow. So let's say. So I looked at it and thought about it quite a bit over the weekend, and I'd like to see. We obviously need to move the number up. I think obviously the land costs are higher. They've been going up for many years. We've seen that, and we do have a number of recreation items on the books for the next few years. So I'd like to see, or I'd like to propose that we double the fee in 2022 to $2,000, double it again in 2023 to $4,000, and then possibly the next year take it to $7,500, or find a cap between $4,000 and $7,500 at some point in time. So I just don't think it's fair to just go from, like I say, 1,000 to 7,500 all at once. On one hand, we're trying to promote and find affordable housing. We know that these dollar figures, ultimately the homeowner pays for them. So I think we need to, I think it needs to be a gradual increase, basically.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. And I agree with you. From 1,000 to 7,500 is quite a jump. And if it could be staged, like you said, doubled this year, doubled again the next year, and then ultimately hit the 7,500. I don't think there's any argument that it needs to get to that number for sure. Because yeah, the land has gone up, everything has gone up, and we got to kind of remain, I think, in step with rising costs as well. And in lieu of parkland, I think it has to hit that number at some point. But I would be I'd be supportive if we could stage that or phase it in to what Councillor Yake has suggested. Matt, do you have any questions, or Mike, with regards to that?
Yeah, through you, Chair McCabe, and I don't want to dwell too much on, Councillor Milne's comment about Mike always looking for dollars. I have a reputation, and I'm happy to acknowledge that. I hear what you guys are saying as it relates to the increase, and I want to just maybe provide context from a staff perspective. I really pushed the reports, or the need for the report, because it's become evident over the last couple of years. Obviously, there's development opportunities being presented to Wellington North that we haven't seen historically. What is also part of that is that it's become evident that the cash in lieu at the rate that it is at is much more attractive to developers than actually providing us with lands that could be utilized for parkland. They look at that $1,000 fee, many of them, and say, well, that's a bargain from a dollars and cents standpoint. So that was the impetus, at least partly in terms of this conversation. And to Councillor Yake's comment, over the last 2 years, we've acknowledged needed investment in our parks and our trails to the sum around $350,000 a year. We've done the last couple of years, and we envision that that's going to be required going forward as well as we expand and enhance our trails. I think one of the things that we recognized during the pandemic and continue to recognize is the value of our parks and trails. Our outdoor spaces have seen significant use, and we want to continue that. So there is investment required. So do we want to always refer to the tax levy in order to do those type of things? No, we'd like to have other sources. So yeah, this is another tool in the toolbox, so to speak. Certainly, again, Dan, your comment, the developers will say, listen, this is a cash grab. You're just increasing the overall cost of development. I understand that as well. I get it. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's the homeowner, it's the apartment buyer, it's the condo buyer that are going to incur these fees. It is a tool, and that's, I think we're just trying to, from a staff perspective, to find the balance in terms of development charges, cash in lieu, parkland, and tax levy to make sure that we have the funds that we need in order to make sure that, our rec facilities, our outdoor rec facilities, parks, trails are getting the right investment. The one other thing that I'll raise, and I'll try not to dwell on it too much. Our rec master plan acknowledged that we needed to acquire 13.8 hectares of parkland and 6 hectares of sports fields by 2031 in order to meet kind of the guidelines around the needed parkland as we grow as a community. So at some point, we're going to have to pay for land in theory. Maybe not, hopefully not. But if we undervalue the cash that we're getting in order to make those, then we're creating our own funding challenge on that side of things. But the comments from the committee are heard, I think, by staff as it relates to the phasing piece. The one thing that we'll run into, and this isn't necessarily for the committee, but for 2 members of this committee, if we phase in cash in lieu of parkland, we may have developers who push to get things done from a development standpoint more quickly, which sounds good, but we have a sewage allocation policy that slows them down. So we've got 2 kind of competing interests that I think we'll need to be aware of when we're phasing to a certain degree. But that's it. I won't beat the dead horse too much longer as it relates to the cash in lieu piece.
Oh, and that's good thoughts, Mike. And and this is the part of the job of the committee to bring this forward to council. And when those 2 competing forces kind of bump and rub, we'll have a bigger discussion at that larger table. Dan, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, no, I think we certainly understand staff's position that, the money is certainly needed. But I think there just has to be, in reality though, Mike, we should have been looking at this 10 years ago. Really, I mean, we should have been increasing this, over the last 10 years, and we'd certainly be in a better position than what we are. But I just think, I have no issue in increasing the costs or the fees. But I think I think it needs to be gradual. There's going to be, I'm sure there's probably some sorts of developments that it will get caught kind of in the middle somehow. It usually happens that way. So that's something I guess we'll have to deal with. And then when you look at the comparable chart, I mean, it really moves Wellington North up the ladder in regards to fees in basically, well, Wellington County, except for Southgate and West Gray. So again, I'm not opposed to it. I just think we need to do it. We need to find the number and set a target of maybe 3 years, whatever it is, and go from there.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't disagree with Mike. His math and his rationale is spot on there, I think. And yeah, you always try to soften the blow, I suppose, from a political standpoint of wanting to phase things in. But really, when you take in the value of the land and the value of the housing unit, you're easily at 750,000. So, 7,500 is 1%. It's not I mean, it all adds up, but 7,500 in the grand scheme of things is not a significant amount. What I'm wondering to make it easier to swallow the pill, so to speak, in your master plan, Mike, has the township got a hard schedule for putting these new facilities in place? So you can say then to the developers, well, yes, it is a significant increase, but this is our plan, hard plan to put these facilities in place for the new residents.
Yeah, I think that's a really good comment, Councillor Milne. And I would say the rec master plan kind of speaks about the overall needs and doesn't define hard deadlines around it. But having said that, our development charges and our background study associated with the development charges identifies $2.1 million worth of parks related programs and enhancements and trails and things of that nature, and has the majority of the works is happening between 2024 or proposed to happen between 2024 and 2028. So there are some pretty hard targets around park services that we can point to that will happen based on growth forecasts. And part of the challenge around the development charges is you're limited in terms of how much development charges you can. So we've got, I'll use numbers because that's what I like. $2.1 million worth of parks projects. We can only actually collect through development charges about $470,000. There's legislative implications. There's benefit to existing. It's convoluted, the process. So yeah, 2.1, 470 we get through DCs, and development charges don't really acknowledge the need for additional lands. And that's what this trigger does help with to a certain degree, is the idea if we need more lands for more parks and more green space, these are the dollars that we can use towards it, as well as some other things. So yeah, is it fair that it all comes from one and not from the other? Probably not. Are development charges and this cash in lieu coming from the same people? Yeah, it is, but it's a different tool that affords us some more flexibility. That's kind of it. But yeah, I don't know if that helps Brian or not, but
no, it does. It does. Thank you very much. It does. I mean, you're right. The developers are always going to push back a little bit. They don't like added costs because they're just going to flow it through to the landowner. But I mean, ultimately, that's who's going to use these facilities is the homeowner or the property owner. So why wouldn't they pay for it, right? If they're going to use it, they need to pay for it.
And some of the just to go off of that a little bit, Brian, and some of the argument we get from developers is, well, you should charge more for parkland to a single family dwelling than you do for an apartment. And I can buy that to a certain degree, but my response to that typically is, listen, a single family dwelling typically has their own green space attached to the dwelling, that they're probably less likely to rely on your outdoor amenities as someone who's in an apartment. They want to use your parks and trails because they have limited options. So that's my counter to it. But yeah, as you can imagine, developers all have a different take on this, and yeah, it becomes a point of contention, and certainly, yeah, increasing from 1,000 to 7,500 will not be it won't get me at the front of the developers parade events, that's for sure. But
you likely would be on a trail. So thanks for that, Mike, and Matt for that report. It's a good report. It is. I haven't read the recommendation yet, so I guess I should probably read that. But and then we can kind of have a little bit more discussion. So I do have a recommendation here, moved by Dan and seconded by Brian, that the Rec, Parks and Leisure Committee receive report RPL 2021-023, being a report on cash in lieu of parkland on new development. And further, that committee recommend the Council of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to amend the fees and charges bylaw to include a cash in lieu of parkland fee of $7,500. And further, that the committee recommend council direct staff to bring a bylaw to require the conveyance of land for park or other public recreational purposes as a condition of the development or redevelopment of land in the Township of Wellington North to a future meeting of council. And further, that committee recommend council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw. So with that, I know, Dan, you and I were kind of saying we were in favor of kind of a graduated approach to this. With the middle of that recommendation saying, obviously stating the 7,500, so that would make it kind of go overnight, so to speak. Are you comfortable with that, or would you, or does the committee want to see a staged or phased in approach? What's the flavor of the committee there? Go ahead, Dan.
I'm supportive of a staged approach. 3 years at the top, 3 years maximum to that 7,500.
Okay. Brian, you just want to rip the Band-Aid off right now and go, or?
Well, I mean, I appreciate this is going back to your full council for approval, regardless of what we do. So I guess Dan knows the flavor of his council or your council a lot better than I do. So I will defer to Dan's, and I'll second. If Dan wants to make that an amendment, I'll second it. I would myself, I'd rather see it just done at the 7,500, but I'm not going to, presuppose that I know better than you two gentlemen do what your council might do. So I will support his recommendation, or I will second his recommendation for an amendment.
Okay. Matt, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair McCabe. I've been trying to write down just to make sure that I understand what's being said. So the staged approach would move the current $1,000 in 2022. So basically effective next week's council meeting to $2,000. And then in 2023, it would double again. So it would go up another $2,000 to $4,000 in 2023. And then in 2024, it wouldn't quite double, but it would go to the 7,500. Is that what's being said?
I think you have understood that, from what Dan has said, but Dan, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah.
And do you want to change or amend that recommendation and move from the fee of 7,500 to what Matt has written down?
Yeah, I'd amend that.
Okay. And ultimately, and Brian, when to kind of address what you were saying, when we take this to our council, the rest of council might say, nope, we're doing the 7,500. Let's go right back to it. Matt.
Yep, thanks, Chair McCabe. Mandy might be able to bring up just an adjusted resolution, just so for sure we're talking all the same thing. I guess that last part we haven't talked about.
No, but I kind of like that addition of the CPI for Ontario based on that, so that so we don't sit and wait for another 10 years to after 2024 to update this again. So I have the recommendation amendment, and further, I'll just read the middle part. And further, that the committee recommend the council of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to amend the fees and charges bylaw to include a cash in lieu parkland fee per the following schedule. 2022 is 2,000, 2023 is 4,000, 2024 is 7,500, and 2025 and everything after would be adjusted based on the CPI in Ontario until council directs otherwise. And further, that the committee recommend council direct staff to bring a bylaw required to the conveyance of land for public and other public recreational purposes as a condition of the development or redevelopment of land in the Township of Wellington North to a future meeting of council. And further, that the committee recommend council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaw. Mike?
Just before committee considers, as it relates to 2025, and I just throw this out as a potential idea for committee to consider. The 7,500 was based on what we anticipate that a service lot would be appraised at, as opposed to doing an adjust. And I'm not suggesting what's being proposed is a bad idea. I'm just wondering if, as opposed in 2025, maybe the impetus falls to do an actual land valuation at that point. 7,500 might be too much at that point. Things can, the dynamics around land values, as you guys all know, I don't anticipate them dropping, but things can change. Maybe as opposed to doing an adjustment on CPI, we in 2025 we proceed with an actual land valuation to get a better sense of what land values actually look like. We may be way behind and CPI doesn't really do what we want it to do, or maybe land values have declined. Who knows?
Yeah, and you make a great point, Mike. And I think it kind of supports hopefully the schedule that Dan has put forward here is, there might be a huge bust, and all of a sudden this price goes down, or the land prices go down, and if we do the 7,500, all of a sudden that really becomes a bigger number. And I know it ultimately gets passed on to the homeowner or the land buyer. But yeah, I think if we could, after the end of 2024, as we near the end of 2024, we can reevaluate this. I don't know, Mandy, if you want to kind of type that in as well. Oh, there you are. Sorry, thanks.
Do I have that captured correctly?
I think the intent is there. The intent is there.
You might want to just, Mandy, just throw land valuation appraisal
Review.
Fair enough. Everyone on the committee okay with the couple amendments there?
So Mike, just explain to me again how that would work, that in the 2025, explain just.
So per the Planning Act, Dan, the 5%, it's complicated. How do I explain this? The reality is,
go down, right?
the reality is, a developer can say whatever number we say the cash in lieu number is, they
Okay.
can go and say, no, we disagree with that. You know, land values aren't worth that. You're entitled to 5% of the land. We think your valuation, whether it's 2,000, 4,000, doesn't make any sense. And they can get an appraisal of that 5% of lands. And the
Okay.
Planning Act would suggest that we have to accept that appraised value. So,
I see.
so what I'm saying is, yeah, come 2025, we get a better sense of what the actual appraisal value of land of that 5% of per lot is, and we use that as the starting point, because it may be less than 7,500, it may be more. Who knows what the market may or may not look like in 2025.
So just another quick question then, could those numbers, any of those numbers be appealed?
Yeah.
Like,
So-
at say
Yep.
next year we get to $4,000, can a developer, a builder appeal that number?
Yeah, so basically the appeal, and Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that they can get an appraisal of the property themselves and say,
Right.
hey, my appraisal says it's 2,500, not 7,500. And
Okay,
and that's basically the appeal mechanism, is that they have to go, it has to be their effort to
Yeah.
do that, to challenge it.
and then whatever the appraisal comes in at is
Right.
what we as a municipality have to accept?
Correct.
Okay. I gotcha.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And the reality has been, Councillor Yake, is that, you know, we've had this $1,000 number, and everybody, you know, the developers are saying, well, you know, like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not
know.
challenging that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just not, doesn't make any sense. I think if we did go to 7,500 as in theory, yeah, some probably would go to the challenge of getting their own appraisal, but I also think it would push them more to consider giving us land, which is not something that's been happening too easily
Sure.
to date.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Matt, I don't know if there was other comments you wanted to make.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, through you, Chair McCabe, to Member Yake. The bylaw that's attached to this report kind of has that mechanism as it relates to the appraisal piece. So if a developer or a subdivider wanted to, you know, felt their lots were only worth $1,000 or $100,000, they would be able to get an appraisal, which would be then charged out at the 5%.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you. That was great. Good discussion and good back and forth from everyone. Thank you for that. And thanks again for the report, Matt. So I do have that, Mandy, if you don't mind throwing that resolution back up. Great, thank you. So there's the resolution. I'm not going to read it again. You can see the schedule and then the proceed with land valuation appraisal review in 2025. So I will call the vote. All in favor?
Just a question, Mr. Chair, procedurally, and I'm no clerk here, but I'm going to suggest that you had the original motion moved and seconded.
Fair enough, yes. So
You
we should
need
just-
the amendment moved and seconded, and then if that passes, then we go back and we have this motion. Am I correct in that, Mr. CEO?
You are, I believe, we should either.
Yeah, I
pass
was just
or
trying, did we get
last one.
the original motion? Did we have a mover and a seconder for that? I don't remember.
Well, Steve
Yes.
read it, and I presumed he did, yes.
Yes, we did, Mike.
There's not many of us to pick from, so I think we did have it moved and seconded.
Okay.
Yeah, we sure did. And so I guess we should probably vote on that. See if it passes or gets defeated.
Well, I think,
then
yeah, I
vote,
think
and then-
Brian is suggesting that we have to move and second the amendment. So this is the amendment.
Right.
Okay, yes, right, fair enough.
So do that, Chair McCabe.
Yep. Do I have a seconder or a mover and a seconder for the amendment as it is on screen?
I'll move it. Dan,
I'll
Thanks,
second.
Dan. Seconded by Brian. Thank you very much. So all in favor
Of the amendment.
of the amendment as it is read? Great, thank you. So then going back, then I'm not going to reread the whole thing again. So we have that original recommendation still on the table
Well, as amended.
as amended. So then we have to vote on that whole recommendation as amended.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So that original recommendation and with the amended paragraph is, it's all good.
Yes.
So all
you're
in
no
favor.
clerk. You're no
Karen-
clerk either. You're no
Karen
clerk
will
either,
call us
Steve.
tomorrow and tell us whether we did this right or not. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, she's probably turning, like just her ears are ringing or something like that. So we have the approved amendment and now we have to approve the recommendation with the approved amendment. And it was moved by Brian and seconded by Dan to get this conversation started, which was great. And I will call the vote. All in favor? Great, thank you very much. That has passed. Okay, Karen will probably bug out about this, but I think we've got it all covered off. So thank you for that. All right, going on to the next piece of the agenda, excuse me. I have RPL 2021-025 regarding the hours of operation, outdoor parks and trail policy. You can see the schedule A, B there, and I will read this recommendation. And it reads that the Recreation Parks and Leisure Committee received report RPL 2021-025, being a report on the hours of operation, outdoor parks and trails policy. And further, that the committee recommend the Council of the Township of Wellington North direct staff to bring a bylaw to a future meeting of council to adopt this policy. And further, that committee recommend council direct staff to bring a bylaw to amend bylaw 046-99 to establish certain rules and regulations regarding the maintenance, operations, and management of all parklands. And further, that the committee recommend that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the bylaws. I will say that was moved by Dan and seconded by Brian. And Tom, I will pass this over to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. What this policy is really just tidying up a bunch of policies or bylaws that we had put out there in the past and bring it all into one. Back in 1999, there was a bylaw approved for parks in the township by Wellington North, which set out hours of operations for all our parks at that time. In 2019, we set a policy for our splash pad hours. And in 2021, we set hours for our outdoor gym in Arthur. The aim of this policy is to define when outdoor parks and trails are opened. All parks and trails opened and closed by the Township of Wellington North. This will give guidance and direction to staff for inspections and maintenance of all the township-owned parks, trails, and splash pads. So for the parks, what we want to do is they would be open daily from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. during the period of May 1st to October 31st. Portable toilets and trash receptacles will be available at the parks, at all park locations. During the period of November 1st through April 30th, portable toilets and trash receptacles will be removed and not be accessible for anybody. For trails, they'll be open daily from dusk to dawn during the period of May 1st to October 31st. Trash receptacles are at the entrances of all trailheads. During the period of November 1st to April 30th, trails are opened but not inspected, and trash receptacles will not be there. Also in the parks, inspections will be done during those open hours too, the open period. Splash pads, they'll be open daily from June until September 30th, from 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. There'll be trash receptacles and portable toilets on site for those facilities too. So that's basically the gist of what we're trying to do here. And if anybody has any questions.
Great, thank you for that, and thanks for the report, Tom, as well. And it seems like this is kind of, I would say, kind of a housekeeping and updating of the bylaw, and it looks, my numbers are right, bylaw 46-99. It hasn't been done since 1999, but that be fair to say?
Yeah, Dan would know better. He was probably on council back then.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one specifically.
I
only-
knew it, Dan.
He was only 12 years old at the time, but yes, he does remember it. Good for him.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm looking at the policy here, the proposed policy. Tom, I'm wondering, you probably want the trails open from dawn till dusk, not dusk till dawn, right?
Correct.
So your policy has it. Okay, that's good. I know there's a lot of nocturnal people in Wellington North, but
That's different than in Southgate.
just saying.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's all I got. I like it. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and thanks for that little catch there. Dan, any questions or concerns? Sorry, I see
Nope.
Matt got his, yep, okay, thanks. Matt, I see you have your hand up there.
Yep, thanks, Chair McCabe. And the update to that 04699 would just be, a lot of those rules are still in place. It would just be to add some enforcement mechanisms is kind of the intent of the update to that bylaw. So that would be something that would come to a future meeting of council.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Any other, yep, go ahead, Tom, I see your hand up.
Just as Councillor Milne pointed out, that typing error, I noticed the outdoor gym is not in our list of parks, so we also need to add that.
Oh, good catch. Good catch, excuse me, Tom, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you very much, and thanks again, Tom, for catching that, and thanks for catching the dawn to dusk and vice versa. Great, thank you for that. Now we're in for a little bit of a treat. We have a year in review 2021 slideshow, and I have a recommendation here moved by Dan, seconded by, excuse me, Brian, that the Rec, Park and Leisure Committee receive for information the year in review 2021 presentation. And I will pass that over to you, Mandy. Oh, there you are.
Thank you, Chair McCabe. I will try and share my screen here. Okay. Are you able to see that okay?
I can see it. Yep.
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right. So this is a look back at 2021 for the Wellington North Recreation Department. Our vision, as set out in the Recreation Master Plan, is ensuring affordable, inclusive, and high-quality recreation, parks, and leisure opportunities through effective communication and combined community efforts. And our guiding principles, also set out through the Rec Master Plan, are opportunities for all, which means, sorry, I'm trying to move, which means to foster community and individual well-being through accessible and inclusive leisure opportunities for people of all ages and abilities, meaningful engagement and communication, which means to effectively share information and involve residents. And we're speeding ahead there. Working to share information, involve residents in decisions and impacting their community. Working together to achieve shared goals is engaging and supporting our volunteers and community partners through the coordinated delivery of initiatives that enhance public access to needed services and facilities. Guiding principle, responsive facilities, parks and trails. I apologize that it keeps doing this. Responsive facilities, parks and trails. So that's to provide a range of thoughtfully designed amenities that respond to demonstrated needs with a view towards maximizing public access, utilizations, and sustainability. Customer-focused services demonstrate an accountability by upholding consistently high standards in customer service programs and policies. And finally, our commitment towards financial sustainability, which is to demonstrate accountability by provide value through the efficient use of resources, balanced application of user fees, integrated decision-making, and pursuit of non-municipal funding sources. My slideshow is telling me to hurry up, so I will try and do that. This slide represents a high-level look at some of our activities this year. Of special note, I would like to draw your attention to the number of electronic payments that were processed between April and November with support of the finance team. In this 6-month timeframe, we were able to accept and process over 220 email transfers and credit card payments. And this is a service level increase that resulted in less foot traffic and fewer cash and check payments in Kenilworth. Due to facility closures, the number of ice rentals shown in this slide reflect actually only a 2-month time frame from September to October. The other hall rentals reflect a May to October time frame. And the reason the upper leisure hall numbers are so high is because it reflects the day camp use in the summer, which represents approximately 50 of those listed rentals. And in Mount Forest, similar to the previous slide, due to those same facility closures, ice rentals represent September to October, and the other hall rentals again are May to October. And of note, the Mount Forest Plume Room, those numbers are also high, and that's to represent the approximately 50 rentals used for the day camp program. So we'd like to note that this slide outlines the Arthur Sports Field rentals from January to October 31st. And we'd like to note that our ball diamond use in Arthur is higher than what is captured on this slide, as this slide only represents ball diamond rentals that were booked for games and not practices. Again, similar to the slide before, the Mount Forest ball diamond use is also much higher than what is captured on this slide, as this slide only represents ball diamond rentals that were booked for games and not practices. So quite a bit of use for games.
Mhm.
Our aquatics programs. So our aquatic programs were certainly interesting to implement this summer, and they resulted in a number of changes to our service delivery and program offerings. To overcome some of these challenges, we spearheaded a local programmers group, and this group was comprised of staff from Minto, Mapleton, and Shelburne, who met frequently throughout the spring and into the summer to discuss challenges and opportunities. And I'd just like to take a moment to commend our aquatics team for their dedication to our pools and to our community. Their positions are very difficult to perform and certainly take a high skill level. And just of interest, we received 8,981 for staffing from Canada Summer Jobs, and we had 4,217 pool admissions over the summer.
It's wild.
In relations to our aquatics facility upgrades, there was a partial liner repair in the shallow end at the Mount Forest pool, a new diving board for Mount Forest, and a new diving board and base for Arthur. We went through some pool technology enhancements. So that included upgrading the facilities with Wi-Fi, laptops, printers, and emails. So we are finally done with faxing at the pools, which is very exciting. We also purchased new vacuums for the pools and received the $18,200 OTF grant. Our summer day camp program was successful this summer, and that was in large part because of our staff. We received plenty of feedback from parents and guardians, and I'd like to take a moment to thank our team for their professionalism and dedication to their roles. Next year, we're looking forward to expanding our program offering in Mount Forest as we reside in a new location closer to the pool and splash pad. And of special note here, we received $26,941 from the Canada Summer Jobs program, and we also underwent some technology enhancements for that programming as well. Our facility programs this year, we have stick and puck running from 4 to 5 p.m. on Thursdays. Public skating is on Fridays and Sundays in Arthur and on Saturdays in Mount Forest. We have indoor walking And as part of the indoor walking, something we're really excited to share is that we are including a coffee/tea break from 11 to noon on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in Arthur, and on Wednesdays in Mount Forest. And that was because we noticed a lot of the participants were sitting around following their 1 hour walk. And we wanted to build that sort of community feeling and allow some of that to happen after the walk happened. We also have a pickleball league on Wednesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. and 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. That's a privately run program, but it is township supported. And we have a children's holiday morning program happening on December 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd this year. Our playgrounds, parks, and trails, we built the new Arthur Optimist playground. We constructed the new Arthur BIA outdoor gym with support of the Arthur BIA. Drainage and surfacing upgrades at the Lion Bill Moody Playground, as well as the Lion Merv Weber Playground and Hutchinson Park. Friendship swing and 2 plastic climbers were installed at the Lion Merv Weber Playground, and the Con Community Playground received a new Revolution spinner, a centipede, and a ladybug, which were repurposed from Arthur. There was also sand surfacing added to the Arthur Lions Playground, and the surfacing was upgraded at Murphy Park at the end of 2020. Continuing on this theme, the Mount Forest Trail Gateway signage was completed in 2020. Stone dust was installed on the Saugeen Trail. That was the entire Princess to Cork Street this year, as well as the North Trail stone dust. It was also installed this year. They also completed some grading on that section of trail to try and help with some of the washouts that it was experiencing. The Wellington Federation of Agriculture Points of Interest signage was installed on the West Luther Trail. There was 5 of those and 3 on the Saugeen Trail. A new pedestrian bridge was built at Wells Street entrance of the River Trail, and bridge repairs were done at the Mount Forest Angus Smith Street Park as well. And then looking forward to 2022, we'll be doing some repairs on the West Luther Rail Trail Clark Bridge. Moving into facilities in Arthur, we had the floor rehabilitation this year. That was the ice piping, floor replacement, including boards and glass, upgrades to the upper leisure hall and kitchen. We fully painted that room. We installed Wi-Fi and a new 65-inch smart TV. We painted the dressing rooms and upgraded the auditorium bathrooms. There's 3 in the ladies. We put 3 sinks and 2 sinks in the men's. We purchased a floor scrubber, and we also underwent technology enhancements. And then moving to Mount Forest, the plume room was fully painted. Dressing rooms were painted. We installed new compressor computer upgrades at the Mount Forest Arena, new energy control systems at the Mount Forest Arena. We purchased a floor scrubber, and we also underwent technology enhancements. In addition, the HVAC and dehumidification system will be upgraded, and that was due to the hailstorm that we had earlier this fall. And over this past year, we have received plenty of feedback from members of the community, and we'd just like to thank the Recreation Facilities team for their hard work, dedication, and adaptability to the constantly changing rules for COVID and processes. Outdoor recreation enhancements. So hydro poles were installed at Ball Diamond B in Arthur. The Donald Softball Diamond, which was formerly the Optimist Baseball Diamond, underwent upgraded infield drainage, fencing, and red clay. Fence capping on all of the ball diamonds, and we reestablished the infields and warning tracks with stone dust. We also added additional stone dust to the fairgrounds walking track. A new bench was installed at Hutchinson Park, and new picnic tables at the Con Community Pavilion. Special projects in 2021 included the recreation wayfinding signage. We launched Perfect Mind, which ended the use of the class recreation software. We began accepting credit card payments for program and facility rentals. We installed Con Community Pavilion signage, and we renewed the Mount Forest Agricultural Society agreement, as well as the Southgate agreement at the end of 2020. And we supported the transition of use of space for tenants at the old Mount Forest Town Hall. In addition, one last note was the development of the new Lines Blacksmith Shop website. Continuing on with special projects, we're a part of the Township website redevelopment project, as well as the New Horizons programs, which is seniors helping seniors through technology and modernization. We supported the volunteer engagement 6-part webinar series, as well as the volunteer appreciation lunch. The furnace was replaced at the Lions Blacksmith Shop and Damascus Hall, and engineer building reports were completed or are in the process of being completed for Damascus, Arthur Seniors, and 2 trail bridges. Our 2021 RFPs/RFQs and financial support. So we released RFPs for the Optimus Playground, the Mount Forest Complex Generator, a concept design for the Mount Forest Outdoor Pool, the Brent Barnes Memorial Skate Park, as well as the clay infield fencing and drainage at the Donald Softball Diamond. And in 2021, we received $18,200 from Ontario Trillium Foundation, $36,273 from Canada Summer Jobs for program staff, $5,987 from Canada Summer Jobs for our facilities staff, $100,000 from the Donald family, $6,500 from the Spaces program with the county, and $10,000 from the County of Wellington Accessibility Grant. Looking ahead to 2022, we've submitted an ICIP application for the Arthur and Area Community Center. We're going to be creating and distributing the Art Recreation Leisure Guide again, which we're very excited about. We're going to be researching the implementation of Perfect Mind membership cards and scanners for programs. We will be designing and installing the Brent Barnes Memorial Skate Park, completing the conceptual design for the Mount Forest Outdoor Pool, and continuing on with the volunteer engagement program. And just finally, to wrap up, these are our recreation team vision and values. So this is something that staff came up with through a staff meeting, and we feel that what we want to bring to the table is a safe, trusting space, teamwork, open communication, and customer-centric service. And finally, if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you very much for that, Mandy. I think, Brian, you'll appreciate this. It's always nice when you see it by the numbers. And great report. The staff does have to be commended, rec staff in particular, at our facilities, and obviously yourself, Mandy, Tom, and excuse me, and Matt as well. It's a great report. It's nice to see. It's great news. There's a lot happening in our excuse me, our township with and engaging, I guess I should say, with everything regards to rec, and it's nice to see. And the funding that we've received, both from the province, the county, federal, and private individuals is just amazing. So with that, I will open the floor to any other comments or questions. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mandy, for that. That was really, really good to see. You know, things transpire over time and you kind of lose track of stuff. It's nice to see it all in one spot, well presented, and kudos to you and your staff and all of the staff at Wellington North. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Dan, and sorry, thanks for that, Brian. Over to you, Dan.
I'll just echo Brian's comments. It was a wonderful report. It really highlights, really does highlight how much happens in recreation in a year, and you know, where the money goes and what it's spent on and what we're looking for the future. So no, just a wonderful report, and thank you to all involved in putting that together.
I have just one additional comment, and I know that it's obviously a big presentation, but will there be a link that's going to be pushed out to our social media? Because I think a lot of people just see arenas as the only part of the recreation that we have in our township, and I would love to see this put on our social media feeds, and so more people have access to it and actually see by the numbers and see how many times people have engaged with our trails, our pools, splash pads, the whole shoot and match, so to speak. So if that's a possibility, I think that'd be great as well. Yep, go ahead, Mandy.
Sorry, yeah, I can definitely do a recording of the presentation and post that to our YouTube channel and then link it off to our socials.
Perfect. That'd be great. Thank you for that. Matt, I saw you come online. Any questions or comments?
Nothing in particular, just, yeah, great presentation, Mandy, and I know, yeah, George, Nick, and Tom helped support in the background as far as providing lots of the information that was before you.
It's been a busy year and probably going to get busier. So look forward to the 2022 presentation as well, Mandy, and in all input from everyone on staff as well. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, that recommendation is on the floor and I will call for a vote. All in favor? Thank you very much. I will go to the items for consideration, starting with you, Councillor Yake.
A minute. You find out where I was, or where I should be.
I'll give you time to go and ask your wife because she'll tell you, as all our wives would.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you asking, Steve? Sorry, I just kind of.
No, that's okay. No, just if you have any items for consideration while we're.
Oh, no, I'm okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Deputy Mayor? All good. I have none. Mike, Tom, Matt, or Mandy?
Nothing for me.
Great, thank you. Seeing a lot of head shaking, so that's good. Thank you very much. I will also count that in as our roundtable, unless someone has anything else to bring up. Yeah, okay, there you go, Dan. Here we go.
Well, I was confused by the roundtable and the items for consideration. So first of all, where'd Mandy go? Mandy, can you come back up there for a second? I just wanted to give you a specific thank you on behalf of the Board of the Archives for working with them and helping them come up with a solution to their space problem and the issues that were happening there. I've been part of that archive since it opened, and Gene Weber many years ago wanted the whole upstairs of that building as well to store their artifacts, and just to be able to get some more room and move some of their important stuff upstairs. They're very pleased, and I am too. So thank you to you and Mike for working with those guys to come up with a solution. So thank you very much for that. And Tom still here? Thomas?
Yep.
Tom, I wanted to ask you about, you and I had talked a while ago about a TV replacement in the lobby. Did that ever happen, or?
No, that has never happened. The TV there is still operating fine. We can do that. I think you, if I remember correctly, you were gonna donate the TV?
Yeah, well, on behalf of the Yake family, yeah. But we had talked, I think, about maybe getting a bigger TV in there. So I'm just wondering if you can look into that, and I don't know, you and I can work it out or whatever we need to do. So
Yep, we can, we'll look for one, and hopefully they still sell them. They didn't sell out for Christmas, but we'll try and find something. Or
All right.
hopefully they've shipped them over here.
yeah. Well, we'll just if you can work on that, and then you and I can talk about it and go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So, that's all, Steve.
Great, thanks, Dan, and thanks for what you and Tom are working out. That's generous of you and the Yake family. So thank you very much for that. Excuse me. I have nothing for the roundtable either. Brian?
No, sir.
Great, thanks. Mike? All good?
All good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That brings us to the Children's Holiday Morning Program, and I will pass the floor over to you, Mandy.
Sure. Thank you, Chair McCabe. I just wanted to put this on the roundtable to bring it to committee's awareness. So on December 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, we're going to be offering a children's holiday morning program. It's from 8:30 until noon. Included in that is some hot chocolate, some healthy snacks. They're going to be doing 2 crafts. It's a $25 fee. And in Arthur, it's actually already sold out. Mount Forest is 50% sold out. So very excited about the success of this program and can't wait to see it come to fruition.
Thanks for that, Mandy. And yeah, it was nice to see that it's sold out in Arthur and almost halfway sold out in Mount Forest. Go ahead there, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's the age limit there, Mandy?
Thank you. So it's ages 5 to 9.
Oh,
Too old again.
So yeah, Brian, you're not eligible. Sorry.
apparently not. Darn it. I probably look like I'm eligible though, right, Mike?
Well, you don't have any gray hair, that's for sure.
Not many hair of any color, really, but okay. Thank you.
No, that's great. Thanks, Brian, and thank you, Mandy. Any questions for Mandy, Dan?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, it's the next section is our closed session, sorry. And the meeting is closed pursuant to section 239 -2 of the Municipal Act 2001 specifically. And here we go. Do you want me to read the whole shooting match or?
No.
I guess I should. The security and property of the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And you'll have the recommendation there in front of you, and that is what I will not read. So we are, I will say that there is a recommendation that the Rex Park and Leisure Committee go into a closed meeting at 5:37 p.m.